You're about to enter the world as the smallest deer on earth. Your mother has carried you for 7 months, hidden deep in the temperate rainforests of Chile. She's been careful, staying in the densest parts of the forest, where the canopy blocks out most of the sunlight. This isn't a place for the careless. Every shadow could hide a predator. Every sound could mean danger. But for now, you're safe inside her, growing stronger with each passing day. Your birth happens quickly and quietly. Your mother finds a secluded spot beneath a fallen log, surrounded by thick ferns and moss. She doesn't make a sound as you emerge into the world. You're tiny, weighing less than a bag of sugar, covered in reddish-brown fur with white spots scattered across your back. Your legs are impossibly thin, like twigs that might snap if you move too fast, but they're stronger than they look. Within minutes of being born, you're trying to stand. Your legs shake as you push yourself up, wobbling like you're walking on ice. Your mother watches, alert for any sign of danger. She doesn't help you because she can't afford to. In this forest, weakness gets you killed. You fall once, twice, then finally lock your legs in place. You're standing barely, but you're standing. Your first meal comes from your mother's milk. It's rich and warm, exactly what your tiny body needs to grow. But feeding time is brief. Your mother can't stay in one place for too long. She nudges you gently, and you understand instinctively what she means. It's time to move. You take your first steps, following close behind her as she leads you deeper into the forest. The world around you is massive. Ferns tower above your head like green umbrellas. Fallen logs create tunnels and bridges that you'll learn to navigate. The forest floor is soft beneath your hooves, covered in a thick layer of decomposing leaves that muffle your footsteps. This is good because silence means survival. Every creature in this forest has learned to move quietly, and you're no exception. Your mother teaches you the rules without words. When she stops suddenly, you stop. When she lowers her head and freezes, you do the same. When she flicks her tail and bounds away, you follow as fast as your legs can carry you. These aren't games. These are survival lessons, and failing to learn them means you won't see your first birthday. The forest is full of sounds that don't belong. The rustle of leaves that isn't caused by wind. The snap of a twig that's too sharp to be natural. The soft padding of footsteps that are too heavy to be yours. Your mother's ears twitch constantly, rotating like radar dishes, picking up every sound and analyzing it for danger. You watch her, learning to read the signals. When her ears go flat against her head, you know something is wrong. Food is everywhere if you know where to look. Your mother shows you which plants are safe to eat and which ones will make you sick. Young shoots, tender leaves, fallen fruits, and fungi growing on rotting logs. You nibble carefully at first, testing each new flavor. Some are bitter, some are sweet, and some taste like nothing at all. But everything is fuel for your growing body. Your spots begin to fade as you get older. The white markings that helped camouflage you as a newborn slowly disappear, replaced by solid brown fur that blends better with the forest floor. Your legs grow stronger, and you can run for longer distances without getting tired. Your mother starts leaving you alone for short periods while she forages nearby. These moments terrify you at first, but you learn to stay perfectly still until she returns. Then comes the day when everything changes. You're about 4 months old, still following your mother through the forest, when you catch a scent that makes your blood freeze. It's musky and strong, carried on the wind from somewhere ahead. Your mother's entire body goes rigid. Her ears flatten against her head, and she backs away slowly, pushing you behind her with her body. The puma appears without warning. One moment, the forest is empty. The next moment, it's there, crouched low on a fallen log, about 20 meters away. It's massive compared to you, with golden fur and muscles that ripple beneath its skin. Its yellow eyes lock onto yours, and you realize you're looking at your death. Your mother doesn't hesitate. She charges forward, not toward the puma, but away from it, making as much noise as possible. She's sacrificing herself to give you a chance to escape. The puma's attention snaps to her, and it leaps from the log with fluid grace. You want to follow her to help her, but your instincts override your emotions. You run in the opposite direction, crashing through the undergrowth like a tiny bulldozer. You hear the chase behind you, the thunder of heavy paws on the forest floor, the crash of branches being pushed aside, the sound of your mother's hooves as she tries to outrun a predator built for killing. Then the sounds stop. The forest goes silent except for your own panicked breathing. You keep running until your legs give out, then crawl under a fallen log and wait. Hours pass. The sun moves across the sky, casting different patterns of light through the canopy. You wait for your mother to find you, but she never comes. As darkness falls, you realize the truth. You're alone. At 4 months old, you're an orphan in one of the most dangerous forests on Earth. Most animals your age wouldn't last a day, but you're not most animals. You're a poodoo, and survival is what your species does best. Your first night alone is the longest of your life. Every sound makes you flinch. Every shadow could be hiding a predator. You press yourself against the underside of the log, trying to make yourself as small as possible. Your stomach growls, but you're too scared to move. You close your eyes and try to remember your mother's scent, but it's already fading from your memory. Morning comes with the sound of rain pattering against the leaves above. You're cold, hungry, and completely lost, but you're alive, and that's what matters. You crawl out from under the log and look around. The forest looks different in the daylight, less threatening, but no less dangerous. You need to find food, and you need to find shelter. Your mother isn't coming back, so it's up to you now. You start moving, staying close to the thickest parts of the forest where the canopy provides the most cover. You remember some of the plants your mother showed you, and you find a few shoots that taste familiar. They're not much, but they're enough to quiet your stomach for now. You eat quickly, always watching for movement in the trees above or the bushes around you. Learning to survive alone is different from learning with your mother. Every mistake could be your last. You eat a berry that makes you violently sick, and you spend the rest of the day weak and dizzy. You sleep in a spot that's too exposed, and you wake up to the sound of something large moving nearby. You try to cross a stream and nearly drown because you underestimated how fast the current is, but you adapt. You learn which plants to avoid and which ones provide the most nutrition. You discover that sleeping in thick brambles is uncomfortable but safe because larger predators can't reach you. You figure out how to test the depth of streams with your hooves before committing to crossing them. Each day brings new challenges, but each day also brings new knowledge. Your body changes as you grow. Your legs get longer and stronger. Your hearing becomes more acute. Your sense of smell sharpens to the point where you can detect a predator from hundreds of meters away. Your coat darkens, losing the last traces of your baby spots. You're becoming an adult poodoo, built for this harsh environment. The forest tests you constantly. A hawk circles overhead, looking for easy prey. You freeze beneath a thick bush and wait for it to pass. A fox picks up your scent and follows your trail for hours. You double back on yourself, confusing your tracks until it gives up and looks for easier prey. A snake blocks your path to water, and you wait patiently until it slithers away. Winter arrives with a vengeance. The temperature drops, and food becomes scarce. The tender shoots and leaves you've been eating disappear, replaced by tough bark and bitter fungi. You lose weight, your ribs becoming visible beneath your fur. Some days you find nothing to eat at all. You learn to conserve energy, moving only when necessary, sleeping as much as possible to preserve your strength. But you survive. When spring returns, you're still here, still alive, still fighting. You've made it through your first year, something that seemed impossible when you were cowering under that log as a terrified 4-month-old. You're not the same animal you were then. You're harder, smarter, more careful. You've learned that the forest doesn't care about your feelings or your fears. It only cares about whether you're strong enough to survive. Your second year brings new challenges. You're bigger now, too big to hide in the small spaces that once provided safety. You need to find new ways to avoid predators, new places to sleep, new sources of food. Your territory expands as you explore areas of the forest you've never seen before. Some are rich with food, others are barren, some are safe, others are crawling with dangers. You're only beginning to understand. You encounter other poodoos for the first time since your mother died. They're not friendly. This forest doesn't have room for friendship. Resources are limited, and every animal is competition. An older male chases you away from a particularly good feeding spot. A female with a fawn of her own threatens you when you get too close. You learn to keep your distance, to avoid confrontation whenever possible. But you also learn that you're not completely alone. Sometimes you catch glimpses of other poodoos in the distance, moving through the forest like ghosts. They're survivors too, animals who've learned the same harsh lessons you have. There's a kind of respect in the way they acknowledge each other's presence without interfering. You're all fighting the same battle, just in different corners of the same battlefield. Your third year is when you truly come into your own. You're fully grown now, standing barely 40 centimeters tall, but perfectly adapted to this environment. Your movements are fluid and silent. Your reactions are lightning fast. You can detect danger from incredible distances and disappear into the forest like smoke. You've become everything your mother hoped you would be when she made that final sacrifice to save your life. The forest that once seemed impossibly large now feels like home. You know every trail, every hiding spot, every source of food within your territory. You've survived attacks from pumas, eagles, foxes, and snakes. You've weathered storms that knock down trees and floods that turn streams into raging torrents. You've endured winters that killed weaker animals and summers that dried up water sources. But survival is only the beginning. Now that you've proven you can live in this harsh world, new instincts begin to surface. For the first time in your life, you start thinking about more than just staying alive. You start thinking about the future, about continuing the cycle that brought you into existence. The forest that has been your enemy for so long might also be the place where you find something you've never had before, a mate. The urge to find a mate doesn't hit you all at once. It starts as a restless feeling, like an itch you can't scratch. You've spent 3 years focused entirely on survival, but now something deeper is stirring. During mating season, which comes with the autumn rains, your behavior changes completely. You become bolder, more willing to take risks that would have terrified you just months before. You start marking your territory more aggressively. Your scent glands work overtime, leaving traces on trees and bushes that announce your presence to any female in the area. This is dangerous because those same scent marks also attract predators, but the drive to reproduce overrides your usual caution. You're no longer just trying to survive. You're trying to pass on your genes to the next generation. Finding a female is harder than it sounds. Pudas are solitary creatures, and females are even more secretive than males. They've learned to avoid areas where males have been scent marking because unwanted attention can be deadly. You spend weeks searching, following faint trails that lead nowhere, investigating sounds that turn out to be falling branches or small birds. Then, one misty morning, you catch a scent that stops you dead in your tracks. It's female, and she's an estrus. Your entire body goes on high alert. Every instinct tells you to find her, but you force yourself to move slowly. This could be a trap. Other males might be tracking the same scent, and encounters between competing males rarely end well for the smaller animal. You follow the trail carefully, staying low and moving from cover to cover. The scent grows stronger as you navigate through a particularly dense section of forest. Your heart pounds so hard, you're sure every predator in the area can hear it. Then you see her. She's about 30 meters ahead, feeding on young bamboo shoots near a small stream. She's beautiful, with a coat that gleams like copper in the filtered sunlight. But she's not alone. Another male is already there, circling her cautiously. He's bigger than you, with small antlers that mark him as an older, more experienced animal. Your first instinct is to retreat, to find another female somewhere else. But something keeps you frozen in place. Maybe it's the way she moves, graceful and alert. Maybe it's the fact that you've been searching for weeks without finding another potential mate. Either way, you're not leaving without a fight. You approach slowly, making yourself as visible as possible. The other male notices you immediately. His head snaps up, and he positions himself between you and the female. His message is clear. She's his, and you need to leave. But you don't leave. You lower your head and take another step forward. The fight that follows is brief, but vicious. Pudas don't have impressive antlers like larger deer, but they make up for it with speed and aggression. You dart in low, trying to knock him off balance. He counters by rearing up and striking down with his front hooves. One of them catches you across the shoulder, tearing through your fur and leaving a bloody gash. You stumble, but don't fall. Adrenaline floods your system, dulling the pain and sharpening your focus. You feint left, then dive right, catching him in the ribs with your small antlers. He grunts and backs away, reassessing the situation. You're smaller, but you're also faster and more desperate. Sometimes that's enough to tip the balance. The female watches from a safe distance, seemingly unconcerned about which male wins. She's more interested in the quality of the fight than the fighters themselves. A weak male won't produce strong offspring, so she needs to see proof that whoever wins is worth her time. You give her that proof by refusing to back down, even when a second blow from your opponent opens a cut above your eye. The turning point comes when the larger male makes a mistake. He charges forward with too much momentum, expecting you to dodge. Instead, you meet him head-on, using his own weight against him. You slide beneath his chest and drive your antlers upward, catching him in the soft area under his throat. He rears back, choking and gasping, and you press your advantage. You drive him backward, strike after strike, until he finally breaks and runs. He disappears into the forest, leaving you bloody but victorious. You turn to the female, expecting some kind of acknowledgement, but she's already moved on. She's testing you now, making you work for what you've won. She bounds away through the trees, and you follow, your wounds forgotten in the excitement of the chase. The courtship ritual lasts for hours. She leads you through the most difficult terrain she can find, over fallen logs, through thick brambles, across streams swollen with autumn rain. If you can't keep up, if you show any sign of weakness, she'll disappear and leave you with nothing. But you've spent 3 years mastering this forest, and you match her move for move. Finally, as the sun begins to set, she stops running. You approach carefully, still not entirely sure she won't bolt again, but this time she stands her ground, allowing you to get close enough to touch. The mating itself is quick and efficient, more about survival than romance. When it's over, she moves away and begins feeding as if nothing happened. You want to stay with her to build something together, but that's not how poodoo relationships work. By morning, she's gone, disappeared into the forest like a ghost. You'll never see her again, and you'll never know if the mating was successful. Your role in the reproductive cycle is complete, and now you're back to being a solitary animal focused on survival. The wounds from your fight take weeks to heal completely. The gash on your shoulder gets infected, slowing you down and making you more vulnerable to predators. You have to change your behavior, staying closer to thick cover and avoiding areas where larger predators might be hunting. Food becomes secondary to finding safe places to rest while your body repairs itself. But you survive, as you always have. The scars become permanent reminders of your victory, proof that you were strong enough to win a mate and pass on your genes. As winter approaches, you settle into a routine of careful foraging and cautious movement. The mating season is over, and you're back to the business of staying alive. Your 4th year brings new challenges. You're not the young, quick animal you once were. The years of constant stress, poor nutrition, and physical trauma have taken their toll. You're still fast and alert, but your endurance isn't what it used to be. Younger males are moving into your territory, pushing the boundaries, testing your strength. You fight when you have to, but you're more selective about your battles now. Experience has taught you that not every challenge needs to be met with violence. Sometimes the smart move is to retreat, to find a new area where you can live without constant confrontation. You adjust your territory, giving up some prime feeding areas in exchange for peace. The forest continues to change around you. Logging operations move closer each year, bringing noise and destruction to areas that were once pristine wilderness. Roads cut through traditional migration routes, forcing animals to adapt or die. Some of your kind don't adapt fast enough. You find their bodies along the forest edges, victims of vehicles they never learned to avoid. But you adapt because that's what you do. You learn to recognize the sound of chainsaws and the smell of diesel fuel. You avoid areas where the tree canopy has been thinned, knowing that exposed ground is dangerous ground. You change your feeding patterns, your sleeping spots, your daily routines. The forest that raised you is disappearing, but you're still here. Your 5th year is marked by a close call that reminds you how fragile life really is. You're feeding near a stream when a puma appears without warning. This isn't like the encounter that killed your mother. This cat is old and desperate, willing to risk attacking prey that might be too quick to catch. You bolt immediately, crashing through the underbrush with the predator right behind you. The chase lasts for what feels like hours, but is probably only minutes. You use every trick you've learned, every advantage the forest gives you. You dart through gaps too small for the puma to follow, leap over obstacles that force it to go around, zigzag through terrain that favors your smaller size. But the cat is persistent, and you can feel yourself tiring. The end comes when you make a desperate leap across a ravine. Your front hooves catch the far edge, but your back legs slip on the loose soil. You scramble frantically, dirt and rocks cascading down into the darkness below. For a moment, you think you're going to fall, but your claws find purchase on a root, and you haul yourself up just as the puma reaches the other side. The big cat stares at you for a long moment, calculating whether the jump is worth the risk. Then it turns and disappears back into the forest, looking for easier prey. You lie on the ground, gasping and shaking, knowing that you just used up one of your remaining lives. How many more do you have left? The question haunts you as you enter your 6th year. You're middle-aged now for a poodoo, and the forest is becoming a more dangerous place. Your reflexes are still sharp, but they're not what they were. Your hearing is starting to decline, just slightly, but enough to make you miss sounds that might once have saved your life. Your joints ache on cold mornings, and it takes longer to warm up before you can move at full speed. But you're still alive, still fighting, still surviving in a world that seems determined to kill you. You've outlived most of your generation, outlasted predators and diseases, and human encroachment. You've made it at least once, maybe more times than you'll ever know. You've contributed to the continuation of your species in one of the most challenging environments on Earth. The forest that once seemed impossibly large now feels smaller, more familiar. You know every trail, every hiding spot, every source of food and water. You've seen seasons change, watched trees grow and fall, witnessed the endless cycle of life and death that defines this ecosystem. You've become part of it, woven into the fabric of this place in ways that go beyond simple survival. And yet, you know your time is limited. Every day could be your last. Every night could be the one you don't wake up from. The forest doesn't care about your experience or your wisdom. It only cares about whether you're still strong enough to earn your place in it. So far, you are, but for how much longer? Your 7th year arrives with the sound of chainsaws getting closer. The machines work through the night now, their mechanical screaming echoing through valleys that once knew only natural sounds. You wake up to find fresh tire tracks cutting through your territory, deep gouges in the earth that smell of diesel and rubber. The humans are expanding their operations, pushing deeper into the forest. With every passing month, you adapt because you have to. The feeding areas you've used for years are suddenly exposed, the protective canopy stripped away to reveal naked ground that offers no cover. You're forced to forage in less familiar territory, places where you don't know the escape routes or the hiding spots. Every meal becomes a calculated risk, every moment in the open a potential death sentence. The noise is constant now. Even when the machines aren't running, you can hear them in the distance, a low rumble that sets your teeth on edge. The wildlife around you is changing too. Some species flee entirely, abandoning territories their families have held for generations. Others, like you, try to hold on, adjusting their behavior to accommodate the new reality. You encounter more of your own kind during this period, refugees from destroyed habitats looking for new places to live, but the remaining forest can't support them all. Food becomes scarce, and competition intensifies. You find yourself fighting over resources you once took for granted, chasing away desperate animals who are just trying to survive. One morning, you discover that the stream you've been drinking from for years has changed. The water runs muddy and tastes of chemicals, contaminated by runoff from the logging operations upstream. You search for new water sources, but they're all affected to some degree. You learn to drink quickly and move on, knowing that staying too long near any water source makes you vulnerable. Your body starts showing the strain of constant stress. Your fur loses some of its luster, and your ribs become more visible as food becomes harder to find. You're still strong, still capable of defending yourself, but the margin for error is shrinking. A mistake that would have been recoverable in your younger years could now be fatal. The forest fragments around you, broken up by roads and clearings that create islands of habitat separated by dangerous open spaces. You watch from the tree line as trucks rumble past, carrying logs that were once part of your world. Sometimes you see other animals attempting to cross these new barriers, and sometimes you see them fail. The roadkill becomes a grim reminder of how quickly the forest can kill those who don't adapt fast enough. But you survive the changes, because survival is what you do. You learn to navigate the new landscape, to find food in places you never looked before, to avoid the areas where human activity is heaviest. You develop new patterns, new routines, new ways of staying alive in a world that's changing faster than you can fully comprehend. Your 8th year brings a different kind of challenge. You're getting older, and your body is starting to show it in ways that matter. Your vision isn't as sharp as it once was, especially in low light. Your hearing, while still good, doesn't pick up the subtle sounds that once gave you advance warning of approaching danger. Your joints ache more frequently, and cold weather affects you in ways it never did before. You compensate by being more cautious, more selective about when and where you move. You avoid traveling during the peak hunting hours when predators are most active. You stick to familiar routes where you know every rock and root, where muscle memory can guide you even when your senses falter. You become a ghost in your own territory, present but barely visible, alive but increasingly fragile. The mating season arrives again, but this time you approach it differently. You're not the young, aggressive male you once were, ready to fight any challenger for the right to breed. You're older now, wiser, more strategic. You pick your battles carefully, avoiding confrontations with younger, stronger males when possible. Sometimes wisdom is knowing when not to fight. You do find a mate eventually. She's older too, a female who's survived long enough to appreciate experience over raw power. The courtship is less dramatic than your first mating, more of a mutual agreement between two survivors who understand the harsh realities of forest life. You spend several days together, a rare moment of companionship in an otherwise solitary existence. When she leaves, you don't follow. You understand now that your role is not to build lasting relationships, but to contribute to the continuation of your species. If your genes survive in her offspring, that's success enough. If not, you've still played your part in the endless cycle of life and death that defines this place. Your 9th year is marked by a series of close calls that remind you how thin the line is between life and death. A tree falls during a storm, missing you by inches. A snake strikes at your leg, but catches only air as you leap backward. A hawk swoops down from above, talons extended, but you duck into a bramble thicket just in time. Each incident shaves a little more off your remaining lives. You start to notice changes in your behavior, subtle shifts that signal your body's recognition of its own mortality. You sleep more deeply, even though deep sleep is dangerous. You take longer to react to sudden movements or sounds. Your appetite decreases, and you find yourself eating just enough to maintain your strength rather than building reserves for leaner times. The forest around you continues to shrink. More roads appear, cutting through habitats that have existed for centuries. The sound of machinery is now a constant background noise, as familiar as bird songs or wind through the trees. You've learned to live with it, but it's a reminder that your world is disappearing piece by piece. You encounter fewer of your own kind now. Some have died, victims of predators or disease or simple old age. Others have moved on, searching for better habitat in places you'll never see. The forest that once seemed full of life now feels emptier, lonelier. You're one of the last of your generation, a survivor in a world that's becoming increasingly hostile to survival. Your 10th year arrives with a harsh winter that tests every remaining strength you have. The cold penetrates deeper than it used to, settling into your bones and staying there. Food is scarce, and competition for what little exists is fierce. You lose weight rapidly, your body consuming its own muscle mass to stay alive. You find yourself making compromises you never would have considered in your younger years. You eat plants that taste bitter, roots that are hard to digest, fungi that make you slightly sick but provide necessary calories. You take risks you once would have avoided, venturing into exposed areas during daylight hours because nighttime foraging isn't yielding enough food. The spring that follows is slower to arrive than usual, and when it does come, it brings changes you don't immediately recognize. Your body doesn't respond to the warming weather the way it once did. Your winter coat doesn't shed as completely, leaving you overheated during the day. Your appetite doesn't return with its usual intensity, and you find yourself eating mechanically rather than with the enthusiasm of true hunger. You start to understand that your body is beginning to shut down, not dramatically, not all at once, but gradually, system by system. Your immune system weakens, making you more susceptible to infections that would once have been minor annoyances. Your digestive system becomes less efficient, unable to extract as much nutrition from the same amount of food. Your circulatory system struggles to maintain proper blood flow to your extremities, but you keep going because that's what you do. You've never learned how to give up, never developed the ability to simply lie down and wait for death. You continue your daily routines, searching for food, avoiding predators, marking your territory. The forest doesn't care that you're dying slowly. It only cares that you're still alive enough to participate in its endless drama. Your 11th year begins with a fall that you don't quite recover from. You're crossing a stream on a log you've used hundreds of times before, but this time your balance fails. You slip and crash into the water, the cold shock stunning you into temporary paralysis. By the time you drag yourself onto the bank, you're soaked and shivering, your body temperature dropping dangerously low. It takes you days to fully recover from the incident, and you never quite feel the same afterward. Your confidence is shaken, your movements more tentative. You start avoiding water crossings when possible, taking longer routes that keep you on solid ground. The forest that once felt like home now feels like a maze of potential hazards. You notice that your scent marking has become less frequent, less intense. Your territory begins to shrink as you lose the energy needed to patrol its boundaries. Other animals start to encroach on areas you once defended fiercely. You let them come, too tired to fight battles that no longer seem worth winning. The predators notice your weakness. They don't attack immediately, but they watch you more closely, following at a distance, waiting for the right moment. You can feel their eyes on you, can smell their presence in the wind. They know what you're beginning to accept. Your time is running out. Your 12th year arrives like a whisper rather than a roar. You wake up one morning and realize that you've been alive for longer than most of your kind ever manage. You've survived everything the forest could throw at you, outlasted predators and diseases and human encroachment. You've mated and contributed to the next generation, played your part in the continuation of your species, but survival has come at a cost. Your body is worn down, your spirit tired. You move slowly now, carefully, like an old machine that still works but needs constant maintenance. You sleep more and eat less, your body's way of conserving energy for the functions that matter most. Your world has shrunk to a small area around your favorite resting spots, places where you feel safe enough to let your guard down. The forest continues to change around you, but you're no longer adapting to meet those changes. You're simply enduring them, riding out the waves of transformation that wash over your diminishing world. The sounds of human activity grow louder, the patches of intact forest grow smaller, but you remain a stubborn reminder of what this place once was. You start to have moments of confusion, times when you can't quite remember where you are or how you got there. Your brain, like your body, is beginning to show the wear of decades spent in constant survival mode. You forget familiar landmarks, lose track of time, find yourself standing in clearings with no memory of how you arrived there. But even in your decline, you retain the fundamental instincts that have kept you alive for so long. When danger approaches, you still react, still find the energy to flee or hide. When food presents itself, you still eat, still fuel the biological processes that keep you going. You're dying, but you're not dead yet, and that distinction matters in a world where every day alive is a victory. Your 13th year begins with the recognition that this will likely be your last. You can feel it in your bones, in the way your heart struggles to maintain its rhythm, in the way your lungs work harder to extract oxygen from the air. You're not sick in any way that could be treated. You're simply old, worn out, used up by a lifetime of constant struggle. You find yourself returning to places from your youth, locations that hold significance you can't quite articulate. The spot where you were born, long since disturbed by human activity. The stream where you first learned to drink, now reduced to a muddy trickle. The tree where you sheltered during your first winter alone, cut down years ago to make room for a logging road. The forest that raised you is disappearing, but you're disappearing too. Your presence has become so faint that other animals barely notice you anymore. You're a ghost haunting the ruins of your own territory, a memory of what once was, but you're still here, still breathing, still participating in the endless cycle of life and death that defines this place. As autumn arrives, bringing with it the familiar cycle of preparation for winter, you realize that you won't see another spring. Your body lacks the reserves needed to survive the cold months ahead. Your immune system is too compromised to fight off the infections that come with stress and malnutrition. Your organs are too worn out to handle the additional burden of extreme weather, but you're not afraid. Fear is for animals who still have something to lose, who still have futures to protect. You've already given everything you had to give, already survived longer than should have been possible. Death, when it comes, will be just another transition in a life that's been nothing but transitions. You find a quiet spot beneath a fallen log, the same kind of shelter that protected you as a newborn. The irony isn't lost on you. You've come full circle, returned to the beginning in a way that feels both inevitable and strangely comforting. The forest that has been your enemy and your home for 13 years will reclaim you, as it reclaims everything in the end. Your breathing becomes labored, your heartbeat irregular. The world around you starts to fade, colors becoming less vivid, sounds becoming more distant. But you're not alone. The forest is with you, surrounding you with the same presence that has defined your entire existence. You close your eyes and let yourself drift away, knowing that your story is ending exactly where it began. But your legacy lives on. Somewhere in the forest, your offspring carry your genes, your instincts, your hard-won knowledge of survival. They face the same challenges you faced, fight the same battles you fought, adapt to the same changing world you learned to navigate. The cycle continues, as it always has, as it always will. The forest reclaims your body quickly, efficiently. the way it reclaims everything that dies within its boundaries. Within weeks, there's no trace of you left except the memories carried by the animals who knew you and the genetic code passed down to your descendants. You've become part of the forest in the most literal sense, your atoms recycled into new life, your story absorbed into the larger narrative of this place. Your life as a poodoo is over, but the species continues. Other animals are being born, growing up, learning to survive in a world that's becoming increasingly challenging. They'll face threats you never imagined, adapt to changes you couldn't have predicted, but they'll do it with the same stubborn determination that kept you alive for 13 years. The forest that killed you also created you, shaped you, made you into the animal you became. It's a harsh place, unforgiving and dangerous, but it's also beautiful, complex, full of wonders that most creatures never get to see. You saw them all, experienced them all, survived them all. For 13 years, you were part of something larger than yourself, a living component in an ecosystem that's older than human civilization. The forest moves on without you, but not unchanged. Your death leaves a small gap in the complex web of relationships that bind this ecosystem together. The plants you once browsed grow a little taller. The predators that hunted you turn their attention to other prey. The territory you defended for so long becomes available for younger animals to claim. But before any of that happens, there's the matter of your offspring. You never knew them, never saw them take their first steps, or learn their first survival lessons. That's not how poodoo families work. Your role ended the moment you successfully mated, but their story was just beginning. Your first offspring was born in a hidden den, much like the one where you entered the world. A tiny female, weighing barely more than a handful of leaves, covered in the same reddish-brown fur and white spots that once marked you as a baby. Her mother, the female you fought so hard to win, raises her alone, teaching her the same harsh lessons your own mother tried to teach you. The little female learns quickly because she has to. The forest hasn't become any safer in the years since your birth. If anything, it's more dangerous now, with human activity creeping closer and habitat becoming increasingly fragmented. She masters the art of freezing at the first sign of danger, of moving silently through the underbrush, of finding food in places other animals overlook. Your genes express themselves in subtle ways. She has your quick reflexes, your ability to assess threats rapidly and respond appropriately. She has your mother's cautious nature, the trait that kept her alive long enough to raise you through those critical first months. She's a product of two successful bloodlines, equipped with the genetic tools needed to survive in this harsh environment. By the time she's 6 months old, she's already showing signs of the independence that will define her adult life. She ranges further from her mother, explores new areas, tests her skills against increasingly challenging situations. Her mother watches from a distance, ready to intervene if necessary, but increasingly confident that her daughter can handle herself. The young female's first real test comes when she's 8 months old. A logging truck crashes on the road that now cuts through what was once the heart of your territory. The accident spills diesel fuel into the stream system, contaminating water sources for miles around. Animals throughout the forest are forced to adapt or die, and many choose poorly. But your daughter chooses well. She remembers her mother's lessons about testing water before drinking, about finding alternative sources when the familiar ones become dangerous. She ranges further than she ever has before, following game trails to springs and seeps that haven't been contaminated. It's risky, but it's also necessary. She survives while others don't. Your second offspring faces different challenges. Born 2 years after the first, this male emerges into a world that's changed dramatically even in that short time. More roads, more clearings, more noise. The forest his half sister learned to navigate has been carved into smaller pieces, each one an island of habitat surrounded by human development. He adapts by becoming even more secretive than previous generations. He learns to move at night when possible, to avoid open areas entirely, to find food in the narrow strips of forest that remain between human installations. His survival depends on being invisible, on existing in the gaps between the human world and the natural one. The male carries your aggressive streak, the trait that helped you win fights against larger opponents. But he channels it differently, using it to defend resources rather than mates. Food is scarcer now, and competition is fierce. He establishes a small territory in a patch of forest that most animals would consider marginal, but he defends it with a ferocity that surprises larger competitors. Your third offspring, another female, is born into an even more challenging world. By the time she's old enough to fend for herself, the forest has been reduced to scattered fragments connected by narrow corridors of trees. The old migration routes are gone, cut off by roads and developments. The traditional feeding areas have been logged or developed. She survives by being adaptable in ways your generation never had to be. She learns to eat foods that previous generations would have avoided, to find shelter in places that would have been considered unsuitable, to navigate human-dominated landscapes without being seen. She's still a poodoo, but she's also something new, a creature evolved for life in a world where wilderness and civilization overlap. Each of your offspring faces the same fundamental challenge you faced: how to stay alive in a world that seems designed to kill them. They respond with the same stubborn determination that kept you going for 13 years, but they also bring new adaptations, new strategies, new ways of being a poodoo in a changing world, such those. Your genes spread through the population slowly but steadily. Your great-grandchildren inherit your quick reflexes, your ability to assess danger, your talent for finding food in unlikely places. They also inherit the accumulated adaptations of their other ancestors, creating combinations of traits that are uniquely suited to survival in the modern forest. But genetics is only part of the story. The forest itself is changing, shaped by forces beyond the control of any individual animal. Climate change brings new weather patterns, new seasonal rhythms, new challenges for creatures adapted to the old ways. The remaining patches of habitat become increasingly isolated, making it harder for animals to find mates and maintain genetic diversity. Some of your descendants adapt better than others. The ones who learn to live alongside human development thrive, finding new sources of food and shelter in the margins of civilization. Others struggle, unable to adjust to the rapid pace of change. The forest becomes a testing ground for different survival strategies, with success measured not in years, but in generations. Your fourth offspring, born just before your death, inherits a world that would be barely recognizable to you. The stream where you learned to drink has been channeled into concrete culverts. The trees where you once sheltered have been replaced by planted forests designed for timber harvest. The natural rhythms of the forest have been disrupted by human activity that never stops. Yet somehow, life persists. Your descendants find ways to survive in this altered landscape, passing on not just their genes but their knowledge, their instincts, their hard-won understanding of how to live in a world that's constantly changing. They're still Pudas, but they're also something more, survivors in the truest sense of the word. The forest that raised you continues to shrink, but it doesn't disappear entirely. Conservation efforts protect some areas, creating islands of habitat where pudas can live something approaching a natural life. These reserves become genetic repositories, places where the old ways can be preserved and passed on to future generations. Your bloodline contributes to this genetic diversity, adding its unique combination of traits to the broader pool, the quick reflexes that saved you from countless predators, the cautious nature that kept you alive through 13 winters, the aggressive streak that helped you win a mate. All of these become part of the species' arsenal for survival. But survival isn't just about genetics. It's also about behavior, about learned responses, about the accumulated wisdom of generations. Your descendants inherit not just your DNA, but your approach to life. Careful, cautious, endlessly adaptable. They learn to read the forest the way you did, to sense danger before it becomes visible, to find opportunity in the most unlikely places. The challenges they face are different from yours, but the fundamental skills remain the same. They must still avoid predators, still find food, still reproduce successfully. The details change, but the basic requirements of survival remain constant. They adapt by building on the foundation you and your ancestors established, adding new layers of knowledge and behavior to the species' survival strategy. Your great-great-grandchildren live in a world that's stabilized somewhat, where the worst of the habitat destruction has slowed, and conservation efforts have created corridors connecting the remaining forest patches. They're still pudas, but they're also something new, a generation that has learned to live with human presence rather than despite it. They've developed new behaviors, new strategies, new ways of being a pudu in a world shared with humans. Some have learned to forage in managed forests, eating the understory plants that grow beneath planted trees. Others have adapted to life near human settlements, finding food in gardens and parks while avoiding contact with people. The forest that killed you and created you lives on in these descendants, but it's a different forest now, smaller, more fragmented, more carefully managed. It's not the wild place you knew, but it's still home to pudas, still capable of supporting the species that has called it home for thousands of years. Your legacy isn't just genetic, it's also ecological, part of the complex web of relationships that bind the forest together. The plants you ate, the predators you evaded, the territory you defended, all of these interactions helped shape the ecosystem that your descendants now inhabit. You are part of something larger than yourself, a living component in a system that's older than human civilization. The forest remembers you in its own way. The trees you rubbed against still bear faint marks from your antlers. The trails you followed are still there, maintained by the feet of animals that never knew you but follow the same paths for the same reasons. The stream where you drank still flows, though it's been channeled and redirected by human engineering. Your story becomes part of the forest's story, woven into the larger narrative of this place. You are one pudu among many, but you are also unique, irreplaceable, an individual life lived with purpose and determination. Your 13 years mattered, not just to you, but to the species, to the ecosystem, to the continuation of life itself. The forest that tested you so harshly also gave you everything you needed to survive. It provided food when you knew where to look, shelter when you knew where to hide, opportunities when you were bold enough to take them. It was your enemy and your home, your challenge and your refuge. It made you into the animal you became, and it continues to shape your descendants in the same fundamental ways. Your death marks the end of one story, but the beginning of many others. Your offspring carry your genes forward, but they also carry your spirit, your determination, your refusal to give up in the face of overwhelming odds. They face new challenges with the same stubborn persistence that kept you alive for 13 years, adding their own innovations to the species' survival toolkit. The forest moves on, as it always has, as it always will. New animals are born, learn to survive, reproduce, and die. The cycle continues, driven by the same forces that shaped your life and the lives of your ancestors. Your story is part of that cycle, a single thread in a tapestry that's been weaving itself for millions of years. But your thread mattered. It added strength to the weave, color to the pattern, resilience to the whole. Your life was brief by human standards, but it was complete by the standards of your species. You did what you were born to do. You survived, you adapted, you reproduced, you contributed to the continuation of life itself. The forest that raised you is smaller now, more fragmented, more carefully managed, but it's still there, still home to pudas, still capable of producing animals like you. Your descendants walk the same trails, drink from the same streams, hide in the same thickets. They face different challenges, but they face them with the same determination that kept you alive for 13 years. Your legacy lives on in every pudu that learns to freeze at the first sign of danger, in every animal that finds food in an unlikely place, in every creature that refuses to give up even when the odds seem impossible. You were part of something larger than yourself, and that something continues, strengthened by your contribution, enriched by your story. The forest remembers you, not as an individual, but as part of the endless flow of life that defines this place. You were born here, lived here, died here, and became part of the soil that feeds the trees that shelter the next generation. Your atoms have been recycled into new life, your story absorbed into the larger narrative of this ecosystem. Your life as a pudu is over, but the species continues. The forest that tested you so harshly also created you, shaped you, made you into the animal you became. It's a harsh place, unforgiving and dangerous, but it's also beautiful, complex, full of wonders that most creatures never get to see. You saw them all, experienced them all, survived them all. For 13 years, you were part of something larger than yourself, a living component in an ecosystem that's older than human civilization. And in the end, sis, that's enough. Your story is complete, your legacy secure, your contribution to the continuation of life itself recognized and remembered. The forest moves on, as it always has, as it always will. But it moves on changed by your presence, enriched by your story, strengthened by your determination to survive against all odds. You're 7 years old now, and something in the forest has changed. The scent hits you first, thick, musky, unfamiliar. It's not a predator, but it's not prey either. You freeze, every muscle locked in place, as your brain processes what you're detecting. Then you see it, another pudu, but massive compared to you. It's an adult male, probably twice your size, with small but sharp antlers that catch the filtered sunlight. He's not here by accident. This is mating season, and he's following the same instincts that will soon drive you. But right now, you're just an obstacle in his path, a young male who hasn't learned his place yet. He approaches slowly, deliberately, his head lowered in a way that makes his intentions clear. This is his territory now, and you need to leave. You don't run immediately. Something stubborn in your nature refuses to back down without at least showing that you won't be pushed around easily. You lower your own head, such as it is, and take a step forward. The larger male stops, seeming almost amused by your display of defiance. Then he charges. The impact sends you tumbling backward through the ferns. You scramble to your feet, but he's already there, driving you further away from the prime feeding area you've been using. His antlers catch you across the shoulder, not deep enough to cause serious damage, but painful enough to make his point clear. You're outmatched, and you both know it. You retreat, but not far. You find a spot just outside what he considers his territory and wait. Hours pass. The big male feeds, marks his territory with scent, and generally acts like he owns the place, which for now he does. But you're patient. You've learned that the forest rewards those who wait for the right moment. That moment comes when a female appears. She's cautious, alert, testing the air for danger as she moves through the undergrowth. The male notices her immediately and approaches with the kind of confidence that comes from size and strength, but she's not impressed. She bounds away, leading him on a chase that takes them both out of the immediate area. You slip back into the feeding area and eat as quickly as you can. The tender shoots and young leaves taste even better because you had to fight for them. When you hear the male returning, you disappear back into the forest, but you've made your point. You're not going to be pushed around forever. This pattern repeats over the next few days. The larger male claims the best resources. You wait for opportunities to use them when he's distracted. It's not a sustainable arrangement, but it teaches you valuable lessons about patience, timing, and the importance of picking your battles carefully. Eventually, the male moves on, following the female who's been leading him in circles for days. You reclaim your territory, but you're different now. You understand that size and strength matter in ways you hadn't fully grasped before. You're still growing, still getting stronger, but you're also learning that sometimes survival means knowing when to fight and when to wait. Your 8th year brings your first real taste of what it means to be an adult poodoo. The forest that once seemed impossibly large now feels more manageable. You know where to find food in every season, where to shelter during storms, where to hide when predators are hunting. You've developed your own territory, a patch of forest that provides everything you need to survive. But territory comes with responsibilities. You have to defend it, mark it, maintain it. Other animals test your boundaries constantly, probing for weaknesses, looking for opportunities to expand their own range at your expense. You learn to read the signs of encroachment and respond appropriately. Sometimes a warning is enough. Sometimes you have to fight. Your first serious territorial dispute comes when another male, slightly smaller than you, but more aggressive, tries to claim a particularly rich feeding area. You've been using this spot for months, and your scent marks clearly establish your claim, but he ignores them, feeding boldly in broad daylight, as if the territory belongs to him. You approach carefully, giving him every opportunity to retreat gracefully. He doesn't take it. Instead, he turns to face you, head lowered, ready to fight. You realize this isn't going to be resolved with posturing and intimidation. This is going to require violence. The fight is brief but intense. You're evenly matched in size, but you have the advantage of defending familiar ground. You know every rock, every root, every uneven patch of ground. When he charges, you sidestep and use his momentum against him, driving him into a tree trunk. He recovers quickly and comes at you again, but you're ready, your antlers lock together, and for a moment you're pushing against each other with everything you have. He's strong, but you're stronger. More importantly, you're fighting for something that already belongs to you, while he's fighting for something he hopes to take. The motivation makes a difference. You break the lock by twisting sharply to the side, catching him off balance. He stumbles, and you press your advantage, driving him backward with a series of quick strikes. He tries to stand his ground, but you're relentless, forcing him to give ground with each exchange. The end comes when he makes a mistake. He overextends during a charge, leaving himself vulnerable. You catch him in the ribs with your antlers, and he goes down hard. He's not seriously injured, but he's heard enough to know he's lost. He gets up slowly, backs away, and disappears into the forest. You don't chase him. You've made your point. Your territory is secure, but the victory comes at a cost. You have cuts on your shoulder and neck, and your left antler is cracked near the base. The wounds will heal, but they're reminders of the price of ownership. In the forest, nothing is free, and everything must be earned. You're 9 years old when you encounter your first human. You're feeding near the edge of your territory when you catch a scent that stops you cold. It's unlike anything you've ever smelled before, complex, layered, carrying hints of metal and chemicals and something else you can't identify. You freeze, trying to process what you're detecting. Then you see it. A two-legged creature moving through the forest with none of the grace or stealth you associate with predators. It's making noise, breaking branches, stepping on dry leaves. It's carrying something in its hands, something that glints in the sunlight. You've never seen anything like it, and every instinct tells you to run. But curiosity keeps you frozen in place. The creature stops, raises the object in its hands, and points it in your direction. You hear a clicking sound, then the creature lowers the object and moves on. You wait until it's completely out of sight before you move, but the encounter stays with you. Over the following weeks, you see more of these creatures. They move through the forest in groups, always making noise, always carrying objects you don't understand. They don't seem to be hunting in any way you recognize, but they're clearly predators of some kind. You give them a wide berth, but they're becoming more common. Then one day, you wake up to the sound of machines. The noise is unlike anything you've ever heard, a mechanical roaring that seems to come from everywhere at once. You creep to the edge of your territory and see something that makes your blood just run cold. The creatures are cutting down trees, using metal beasts that devour wood and leave nothing but stumps behind. Your territory is directly in the path of their destruction. The feeding areas you've defended so carefully, the shelter sites you've used for years, the trails you've worn with your own feet, all of it is about to disappear. You watch in horror as trees that have stood for decades crash to the ground in seconds. You retreat deeper into the forest, but the machines follow. Each day brings them closer to the core of your territory. You're forced to abandon feeding areas, sleeping spots, trails you've used since you were young. The familiar landmarks that have guided you for years vanish under the mechanical assault. The other animals are fleeing too. You see them streaming past your remaining territory, heading for parts of the forest that haven't been touched yet. Some you recognize, competitors you've fought, neighbors you've tolerated. Others are strangers, refugees from areas that have already been destroyed. The forest is being compressed, its inhabitants forced into smaller and smaller spaces. You try to establish a new territory in an area that's still intact, but it's already occupied. The original residents don't welcome refugees, and you find yourself in constant conflict with animals who were there first. Food becomes scarce as too many creatures compete for too few resources. The delicate balance that allowed the forest to support its population has been shattered. You're 10 years old when you finally understand what the humans are doing. They're not just cutting down trees randomly. They're creating something new, something that serves their purposes rather than the forests. Where once there were trees, now there are roads. Where once there were streams, now there are bridges. Where once there was wilderness, now there is something else entirely. The remaining forest exists in fragments, islands of green separated by expanses of concrete and metal. You learn to navigate this new landscape, but it's nothing like the continuous forest you grew up in. Moving between feeding areas now requires crossing open spaces where you're exposed to predators that hunt from above. Finding water means risking exposure near human installations. Your territory shrinks to a few hectares of forest that somehow escaped the initial destruction. It's not enough to support you properly, but it's what you have. You supplement your diet by foraging in the edges of the human-created spaces, learning to identify edible plants that grow in disturbed soil. The humans seem to have forgotten about the forest fragments they left behind. The machines move on to destroy other areas, leaving you and the other survivors to figure out how to live in what remains. It's a harsh education, an adaptation, but you're good at adapting. You've been doing it your whole life. You learn to time your movements around human activity. The roads are dangerous during the day when the metal beasts roam them, but at night they become corridors you can use to move between forest fragments. You develop new routes, new strategies, new ways of being a poodoo in a world that's been fundamentally altered. Your 11th year brings a different kind of challenge. The forest fragments are stabilizing, but they're also becoming more crowded. Animals that once had large territories are compressed into smaller spaces, and the competition for resources is intense. You find yourself fighting more frequently, not just for territory, but for individual feeding sites, water sources, even sleeping spots. The stress takes its toll. You're losing weight, and your coat doesn't have the luster it once did. The constant vigilance required to survive in this new environment is exhausting. You sleep less, eat less, move more. It's a grinding existence that wears down even the strongest animals, but you adapt because that's what you do. You learn to be more efficient with your movements, to extract maximum nutrition from whatever food you can find, to rest in short bursts rather than long sessions. Your body becomes leaner, harder, more suited to the demands of this compressed existence. You also become more social, in a way. The isolation that once characterized poodoo life is no longer possible when animals are forced to live in close proximity. You develop a system of signals and behaviors that allow you to coexist with neighbors without constant conflict. It's not friendship, but it's not pure hostility either. Your 12th year is marked by a discovery that changes everything. While exploring the edges of your territory, you find a gap in the human construction, a narrow corridor of forest that connects your fragment to another one several kilometers away. It's not much, just a strip of trees along a stream that the humans apparently decided to preserve. But it's enough. The corridor allows you to expand your range, to access resources that have been unavailable for years. More importantly, it connects you to other populations of poodoos, animals you haven't seen since the forest was fragmented. The genetic isolation that threatened the long-term survival of your population is broken. You begin to explore the connected forest fragments, learning their unique characteristics and resources. Each fragment has its own personality, its own challenges and opportunities. Some are rich in food, but poor in shelter. Others offer excellent hiding places, but limited nutrition. You learn to use them all, creating a network of territories that spans the entire connected system. The corridor becomes a highway for forest animals. You encounter species you thought had disappeared entirely, survivors who found ways to persist in fragments you never knew existed. The forest is smaller than it once was, but it's still alive, still capable of supporting the complex web of relationships that define a healthy ecosystem. Your 13th year brings a sense of completion that you didn't expect. You've survived everything the forest could throw at you, adapted to changes that would have killed less flexible animals, contributed to the continuation of your species despite overwhelming odds. You're old now by poodoo standards, but you're also successful in ways that matter. The forest fragments have become stable communities, each supporting a population of animals that have learned to live within their constraints. The corridors between them allow for movement and genetic exchange, preventing the isolation that could have led to extinction. It's not the forest you were born into, but it's a forest nonetheless. You've mated several times over the years, though you never knew your offspring. That's not unusual for Putus, but in this fragmented world, it takes on new significance. Your genes are part of the genetic diversity that allows the population to survive in changing conditions. Your contributions to the gene pool help ensure that future generations will be equipped to handle whatever challenges they face. Your body is showing the wear of 13 years in a harsh environment. Your movements are slower, your reactions less sharp. Your coat is graying, and your antlers are no longer as impressive as they once were. But you're still alive, still functional, still capable of defending your territory and finding food. The forest has changed around you, but you've changed with it. You're not the same animal that was born in a hidden den 13 years ago. You're harder, smarter, more adaptable. You've learned lessons that can't be taught, only experienced. You've survived by being flexible, by refusing to give up, by finding ways to thrive in conditions that would have killed your ancestors. You're resting in a favorite spot, a small clearing where the sunlight filters through the canopy just right, when you realize that you're content. It's an unusual feeling for an animal whose life has been defined by constant struggle. But there it is. You've done what you were born to do. You've survived, adapted, reproduced, contributed to the continuation of life itself. The forest around you is smaller than it once was, but it's still home. The sounds are different now, more mechanical, less purely natural, but they're familiar. You've learned to live with them, to filter out the noise and focus on what matters. You can still hear the rustle of leaves, the trickle of water, the calls of birds. The essential music of the forest persists. Your territory is secure, your position in the local hierarchy established. You've fought your last territorial battle, won your last mate, established your final feeding areas. The young males who once challenged you now give you the respect due to an elder. You're not the fastest or strongest poodoo in the forest anymore, but you're the wisest, the most experienced, the most adapted to this particular environment. You think about the journey that brought you here, from a helpless newborn to a successful adult, the predators you've evaded, the challenges you've overcome, the changes you've adapted to. Each experience has shaped you, added to your understanding of what it means to be a poodoo in a world that's constantly changing. The forest that raised you is gone, but the forest that remains is still capable of supporting life. It's different, smaller, more fragmented, but it's still home to Putus and countless other species. It's still a place where life can flourish if it's willing to adapt, to change, to find new ways of existing in altered conditions. Your legacy is written in the genes of your offspring, in the trails you've worn through the forest, in the feeding areas you've established and defended. You've been part of something larger than yourself, a living component in an ecosystem that's older than human civilization. Your contribution matters, even if it's just one small thread in the vast tapestry of life. The sun is setting, painting the forest in shades of gold and green. You settle into your favorite resting spot, surrounded by the familiar sounds and smells of home. Tomorrow will bring new challenges, new opportunities, new reasons to keep fighting for survival. But tonight, you're content to rest, to reflect, to appreciate the simple fact that you're still here, still alive, still part of the endless cycle of life and death that defines this place. Your story is far from over. You still have years left, still have contributions to make, still have wisdom to share with the forest community. But you also understand that your time is limited, that eventually you'll join the countless other animals who have lived and died in this place. When that time comes, you'll face it with the same determination that has carried you through 13 years of survival. The forest moves on around you, as it always has, as it always will. New animals are born, learn to survive, reproduce, and die. The cycle continues, driven by the same forces that shaped your life and the lives of your ancestors. Your story is part of that cycle, a single thread in a tapestry that's been weaving itself for millions of years. But your thread matters. It adds strength to the weave, color to the pattern, resilience to the whole. Your life has been brief by human standards, but it's been complete by the standards of your species. You've done what you were born to do, and you've done it well. The forest that tested you so harshly also gave you everything you needed to succeed. As darkness falls and the forest settles into its nighttime rhythms, you close your eyes and rest. Tomorrow will bring new challenges, but tonight you're safe, secure in your territory, surrounded by the familiar presence of the forest that has been your home for 13 years. You've earned this moment of peace, this brief respite from the constant struggle of survival. The forest remembers you, not as an individual, but as part of the endless flow of life that defines this place. You've been a participant in something larger than yourself, a living component in an ecosystem that's both ancient and constantly changing. Your presence has mattered, your contributions have been noted, your legacy will persist long after you're gone. Your story continues, each day bringing new experiences, new challenges, new opportunities to demonstrate the resilience that has kept you alive for 13 years. You're part of the forest's story now, woven into its fabric in ways that can't be undone. Whatever happens next, you'll face it with the same determination that has carried you this far. The forest that raised you is smaller now, but it's still home. The challenges are different, but the fundamental requirements of survival remain the same. You must still find food, avoid predators, defend your territory, contribute to the continuation of your species. The details change, but the essential task remains constant. You've adapted to every change the forest has thrown at you, from the loss of your mother to the destruction of your original habitat. You've learned to live with humans, to navigate fragmented landscapes, to find opportunities in the most unlikely places. You've proven that life finds a way, even in the face of overwhelming odds. Your descendants will face challenges you can't imagine, but they'll face them with the same stubborn determination that has kept you alive for 13 years. They'll carry your genes, your instincts, your hard-won knowledge of survival. They'll be part of the forest's future, just as you've been part of its present. The cycle continues, as it always has, as it always will. Life persists, adapts, evolves, finds new ways of existing in changing conditions. Your story is part of that larger narrative, a testament to the resilience of life itself. You've lived well, survived against the odds, contributed to something larger than yourself. The forest that tested you so harshly also made you strong. It gave you the skills you needed to survive, the instincts that kept you alive, the adaptability that allowed you to thrive in changing conditions. You're a product of this place, shaped by its challenges, strengthened by its demands. As you rest in your favorite spot, surrounded by the familiar sounds and smells of home, you understand that you're exactly where you belong. This forest, fragmented and changed as it is still your home. It's still capable of supporting life, still beautiful in its own way, still worth fighting for. Your 13 years have been a testament to the power of adaptation, the importance of persistence, the value of refusing to give up even when the odds seem impossible. You've shown that life finds a way, that survival is possible even in the harshest conditions, that the future belongs to those who are willing to change with the times. The forest moves on, as it always has, carrying your story forward into an uncertain future. But whatever that future holds, it will be shaped by the contributions of animals like you, creatures who refused to surrender in the face of overwhelming challenges. Your legacy lives on in every poodoo that learns to adapt, every animal that finds a way to survive, every life that persists against the odds. Your 14th year begins with a harsh winter that tests every adaptation you've developed. The cold cuts deeper than it used to, settling into your bones and staying there. Snow falls earlier and heavier than you remember from previous years, blanketing the forest fragments in white silence. The familiar trails disappear under drifts that shift with every wind, forcing you to navigate by memory and instinct alone. Food becomes scarce in ways you haven't experienced since your first winter alone. The tender shoots and leaves that sustain you through the cold months are buried under snow that doesn't melt. You learn to dig with your hooves, scraping away the white covering to reach the dormant plants beneath. Your movements are slower now, more deliberate, each expenditure of energy carefully calculated against the calories you might recover. The corridor system that connected your world just a few years ago becomes treacherous in winter. The stream that flows through the narrow passage freezes solid, creating a slick surface that's dangerous to cross. You slip more than once, your aging reflexes not quite fast enough to prevent falls that would have been minor inconveniences in your youth. Each stumble reminds you that your body is changing, becoming less reliable, more vulnerable to the forest's casual cruelties. Other animals are struggling too. You find the tracks in the snow that tell stories of desperation, trails that wander aimlessly, seeking food that isn't there. Sometimes you find where those trails end, small bodies curled in the snow, animals that couldn't find enough resources to survive the harsh season. You study these scenes carefully, learning from the mistakes of others, adjusting your own behavior to avoid similar fates. But you also find signs of success, tracks that lead to cached food, to sheltered resting spots, to the small victories that mean the difference between life and death. The forest is full of survivors, animals that have learned the same hard lessons you have. They're your neighbors in this compressed world, fellow refugees from the larger forest that once existed. Your territory shrinks even further as the snow deepens. The outlying areas become inaccessible, cut off by drifts that would require too much energy to cross. You're forced to live in the core of your range, a small area that provides just enough resources to keep you alive. It's a minimalist existence, stripped down to the essentials of survival. The cold affects your joints in new ways. Your left shoulder, injured years ago in a territorial fight, aches constantly now. Your movements become stiffer, less fluid. You compensate by moving more slowly, testing each step before committing your weight. Speed was once your greatest asset, but now caution becomes more important than quickness. You learn to read the weather with new precision, the subtle changes in air pressure that signal approaching storms, the particular quality of light that means snow is coming, the way the wind shifts before a freeze. This knowledge becomes crucial as you plan your daily activities, timing your movements to avoid the worst conditions. The humans seem less active during winter, their machines silent, their roads empty. The forest fragments exist in a kind of suspended animation, waiting for spring to return life to normal rhythms. You take advantage of this relative quiet to explore areas that are usually too dangerous to visit, finding new food sources and shelter sites that might be useful in future seasons. But winter also brings new dangers. The snow that hides food also conceals hazards, holes that could trap you, streams that might break through thin ice, predators that are just as desperate for food as you are. You develop new routines, new ways of testing the safety of each step, each decision, each moment of exposure. Your coat grows thicker than it ever has before, your body's response to the increasing cold. But even this adaptation has limits. On the coldest nights, you find yourself shivering despite your fur, your body burning precious calories just to maintain core temperature. You learn to seek out the warmest microclimates, the small pockets of shelter that hold a few degrees of extra warmth. The forest fragments become islands of survival in a sea of white. Each one develops its own microclimate, its own resources, its own challenges. You learn to read these differences, to know which areas will have the best foraging when the snow is deep, which slopes will catch the most sunlight, which valleys will provide the most protection from wind. Spring arrives later than usual, and when it comes, it brings changes you didn't expect. The snow melts unevenly, creating temporary wetlands in low-lying areas. New plants emerge in disturbed soil, species you've never seen before. The forest is adapting too, finding new ways to exist in the altered landscape. You emerge from winter thinner than you've ever been, your ribs visible through your coat, but you're alive, and that's what matters. You've survived another season that killed weaker animals, proven once again that adaptation and persistence can overcome even the harshest conditions. The forest has tested you, and you've passed. Your 15th year brings a growing awareness of your own mortality. It's not fear, exactly, but a recognition that your time is becoming limited. You've outlived most of your generation, survived longer than the vast majority of your species manages. Every day now is a gift, an opportunity to experience the forest one more time. Your movements become more deliberate, more thoughtful. You no longer rush from place to place, driven by the urgent need to find food or avoid predators. Instead, you move with the careful precision of an animal that understands the value of energy conservation. Because every step is planned, every decision weighed against the potential consequences. The young males in your territory treat you differently now. They no longer challenge you directly, recognizing that you've earned a place in the hierarchy through sheer longevity. You're not the strongest or fastest anymore, but you're the most experienced, the one who remembers how things were before the great changes. They defer to you not out of fear, but out of respect. You find yourself spending more time in observation, watching the forest around you with the attention of someone who knows their time is limited. You notice details that escaped you in your younger years, the way light filters through leaves at different times of day, the subtle changes in bird songs as seasons shift, the complex interactions between species that share your habitat. Your territory becomes more about quality than quantity. You focus on the areas that provide the most reliable resources, the places that have served you well over the years. You know every tree, every rock, every depression in the ground. This intimate knowledge of your environment becomes your greatest asset as your physical abilities decline. The forest fragments continue to evolve around you. New species move in, taking advantage of the altered conditions. Others disappear, unable to adapt to the compressed habitat. You witness these changes with the perspective of someone who has lived through multiple cycles of transformation. Change is constant, but life persists. You encounter fewer of your own kind now. Some have died, victims of age or accident or disease. Others have moved on, seeking better opportunities in distant forest fragments. The population that remains is smaller, older, and more cautious. You're part of a generation that remembers the old forest, the keepers of knowledge that may not survive much longer. Your role in the ecosystem shifts as you age. You're no longer primarily a consumer of resources, but also a contributor to the forest's knowledge base. Your presence signals to other animals that this area is survivable, that the resources here are sufficient to support life. You become a living landmark, a reference point for the forest community. The seasons pass more quickly now, or perhaps you're simply more aware of their passage. Each winter that arrives seems to come sooner than the last. Each spring feels more precious because you're not certain you'll see another one. You develop a deeper appreciation for the cyclical nature of forest life, the way each season brings its own challenges and opportunities. Your 16th year is marked by a gradual withdrawal from the more aggressive aspects of survival. You no longer compete fiercely for resources, instead focusing on the areas and foods that other animals tend to overlook. You become a specialist in marginal survival, extracting sustenance from sources that younger, stronger animals ignore. This shift in behavior opens up new possibilities. You discover food sources you never noticed before, hidden in plain sight. You learn to process tough, fibrous plants that would have been rejected in your youth. Your digestive system adapts to extract maximum nutrition from minimal input, a final adaptation to the constraints of your aging body. Your social interactions become more complex as well. You develop a network of relationships with other aging animals, creatures who have learned similar lessons about survival in a compressed world. These aren't friendships in any human sense, but they're partnerships of mutual tolerance and occasional cooperation. You find yourself returning to places that held significance in your youth. The area where you were born, though much changed by human development. The stream where you learned to drink, now channeled through concrete culverts. The tree where you first successfully defended territory, cut down years ago, but still present in your memory. These pilgrimages become more frequent as you age, as if your body is trying to complete some kind of circle. You're not consciously seeking closure, but something deep in your instincts drives you to revisit the scenes of your past. Each location triggers memories, connections to the animal you once were. The forest has become quieter over the years, not just because of reduced wildlife populations, but because you've learned to hear it differently. The constant noise of machinery that once dominated your attention has faded into background awareness. You filter out the irrelevant sounds and focus on the natural rhythms that persist beneath the human overlay. Your territory reaches its final configuration during your 16th year. You've given up the outlying areas, the marginal zones that require too much energy to defend. What remains is a compact core of reliable resources, a small kingdom that provides everything you need to survive. It's not much by the standards of your youth, but it's enough. The young animals that move through your territory treat you with a mixture of curiosity and respect. You represent something they can't quite understand, proof that survival is possible, that the forest can support life even in its reduced state. Some approach cautiously, as if trying to learn from your example. Others give you wide berth, perhaps sensing that you're different from the animals they're used to encountering. You begin to notice changes in your own behavior that signal the approach of your final phase. You sleep more during the day, conserving energy for the dawn and dusk periods when foraging is most productive. You become more selective about your movements, choosing routes that minimize energy expenditure even if they take longer to travel. Your coat begins to show patches of gray, particularly around your muzzle and ears. Your antlers, once sharp and intimidating, become worn and blunted. Your body loses muscle mass despite adequate nutrition, a sign that your metabolism is shifting toward maintenance rather than growth or strength. But you're not ready to give up yet. Something in your spirit refuses to accept decline as inevitable. You continue to patrol your territory, to mark your boundaries, to assert your presence in the forest community. You may be old, but you're not defeated. You're still a poodoo, still a survivor, still a participant in the endless drama of forest life. Your 17th year begins with an unusual warmth that extends well into what should be the coldest months. Climate change has altered the seasonal patterns you've known your entire life, creating new challenges and opportunities. Plants that normally go dormant continue growing, providing unexpected food sources. But they also attract new competitors, animals that would normally be inactive during winter. You adapt to these changes the way you've adapted to everything else, carefully, thoughtfully, with the patience of an animal that has learned to work with circumstances rather than against them. You adjust your foraging schedule to take advantage of the extended growing season, but you also remain cautious about the new risks that come with altered patterns. The forest fragments show signs of recovery in some areas, new growth filling in gaps created by past disturbances. Young trees reach toward the canopy, creating new layers of habitat. The corridors between fragments become more robust, supporting increased movement of animals and genetic material. You're witnessing the forest's attempt to heal itself, to restore some semblance of its former complexity. Your role in this recovery is subtle, but important. Your presence helps maintain the knowledge of how to survive in these conditions, serving as a bridge between the old forest and whatever comes next. The trails you've worn through the habitat become highways for other animals. The feeding areas you've established become community resources. You begin to encounter animals you haven't seen in years, species that disappeared during the worst of the habitat destruction, but have somehow managed to survive in hidden refuges. Their return is a sign that the forest is becoming more capable of supporting diverse life, that the adaptations you've all made are beginning to pay off. Your own adaptations continue to evolve. You develop new techniques for processing difficult foods, ways of extracting nutrition from sources that would have been useless in your youth. Your digestive system becomes more efficient, your body more skilled at conserving resources. You're becoming a specialist in survival, a master of making do with less. The changing climate brings new weather patterns that test your ability to predict and respond to environmental conditions. Storms arrive with different timing and intensity than you remember from your youth. Droughts last longer, but when rain comes, it falls in torrents that can turn streams into raging torrents. You learn to read these new patterns, to adjust your behavior accordingly. Your territory begins to feel like a museum of your own life, each area holding memories of different phases of your existence. The rock where you first successfully defended resources as a young adult. The thicket where you sheltered during the worst storm you can remember. The stream crossing where you nearly drowned during a flash flood. Each location is a chapter in your personal history. You start to notice that your memory is becoming more selective, holding on to the important lessons while letting go of trivial details. You remember every predator encounter, every successful feeding strategy, every adaptation that kept you alive. But you forget the exact dates, the minor conflicts, the routine details that don't contribute to survival. This cognitive shift proves useful as your physical abilities continue to decline. Your brain compensates for your body's limitations by becoming more efficient, more focused on the knowledge that matters most. You become a living library of survival techniques, a repository of hard-won wisdom about how to live in a fragmented forest. Your 18th year brings a profound sense of completion. You've survived longer than any poodoo in your family line, outlasted the great changes that reshaped your world, contributed to the genetic diversity that will help your species adapt to future challenges. You've done everything a poodoo can do, and you've done it well. The forest around you has stabilized into a new configuration, different from what you knew as a young animal, but functional in its own way. The fragments are connected by corridors that allow movement and genetic exchange. The human development has reached a kind of equilibrium with the natural systems, creating a landscape that supports both human needs and wildlife survival. You've become a landmark in this new forest, a reference point that other animals use to navigate their own lives. Your presence signals safety, your territory boundaries are respected, your knowledge is valued even if it's not directly communicated. You're part of the forest's institutional memory, a keeper of traditions that extend back to the time before the great changes. Your daily routines have become rituals, repeated patterns that provide structure and meaning to your existence. You visit the same locations at the same times, following paths worn smooth by years of use. These rituals serve practical purposes. They ensure you cover all necessary resources while minimizing energy expenditure. But they also provide psychological comfort, a sense of continuity in a world that has changed so much. You begin to spend more time simply being present in the forest, observing rather than actively foraging or patrolling. You watch the play of light through leaves, the movement of insects through the air, the subtle interactions between plants and animals that create the forest's complex web of relationships. You're becoming a student of the forest in its deepest sense, learning lessons that go beyond mere survival. Your appetite begins to decline, not from illness, but from a natural winding down of your body's demands. You eat what you need to maintain basic functions, but the urgent hunger that drove so much of your behavior in younger years has diminished. You're entering a phase of existence where survival becomes less about accumulation and more about conservation. The other animals in your territory seem to sense this change in you. They approach more freely, less concerned about territorial boundaries or competitive interactions. Young animals, in particular, seem drawn to your presence, as if they recognize something valuable in your experience. You tolerate their proximity with a patience that would have been impossible in your more aggressive years. Your sleep patterns shift as well. You rest more during the day, but your sleep is lighter, more alert. You've learned to rest while remaining aware of your surroundings, a skill that serves you well as your reflexes slow. You can no longer rely on speed to escape danger, so you compensate with improved situational awareness. The seasons continue their cycle, but you experience them with a different kind of attention now. Each spring might be your last, each autumn a final opportunity to prepare for winter. This awareness doesn't make you fearful, but it does make you more appreciative of the simple experiences that define forest life. Your 19th year unfolds with a dreamlike quality, as if you're experiencing the forest through a filter that softens the harsh edges of survival. You're still alert, still capable of responding to danger, but the urgent desperation that characterized your younger years has been replaced by a kind of patient acceptance. You've earned your place in the forest's hierarchy through sheer persistence, and now you're reaping the benefits of that achievement. Other animals acknowledge your status, your right to exist in this space. You're no longer fighting for every resource, no longer proving your worth through constant competition. You've simply become part of the landscape, as natural and accepted as the trees and rocks. Your body continues to change, but you adapt to each new limitation with the same creativity that has carried you through 18 years of survival. When your vision becomes less sharp, you rely more heavily on hearing and smell. When your joints become stiffer, you adjust your movement patterns to accommodate the changes. You've become a master of compensation, finding ways to maintain function despite declining abilities. The forest has become your partner in this process of aging. It provides the support systems you need: stable food sources, reliable shelter, familiar routes that minimize the risks of navigation. In return, you contribute your presence, your knowledge, your role in the complex web of relationships that keep the ecosystem functioning. You begin to notice that your influence extends beyond your immediate territory. Other animals follow trails you've established, use feeding areas you've developed, adopt strategies you've pioneered. Your lifetime of adaptations has created a legacy that will persist long after you're gone, knowledge embedded in the landscape itself. So, your interactions with younger animals become more frequent and more meaningful. They seem to recognize something in you that they want to learn, some quality that represents successful survival in this challenging environment. You don't actively teach them, but your presence serves as a model, a demonstration that long-term survival is possible. The weather patterns continue to shift, but you've learned to read the new signs, to anticipate changes before they become critical. Your ability to predict environmental conditions has become one of your most valuable skills, allowing you to prepare for challenges before they arrive. You've become a living barometer, attuned to the subtle signals that indicate coming changes. Your territory has reached its final, most sustainable configuration. Every resource is used efficiently, every route optimized for energy conservation. You've created a closed system that supports your needs while minimizing waste and conflict. It's a masterpiece of adaptation, the culmination of nearly 2 decades of refinement. The forest around you shows signs of maturity as well. The fragments have developed their own characteristics, their own specialized communities. The corridors between them have become established highways, supporting regular movement and genetic exchange. You're part of a system that has learned to function despite its constraints, that has found ways to thrive in altered conditions. Your 20th year arrives with a sense of profound accomplishment. You've not only survived 2 decades in one of the world's most challenging environments, but you've thrived, adapted, contributed to the continuation of your species. You've witnessed the forest's transformation from pristine wilderness to fragmented habitat to something new and different, but still capable of supporting life. The young animals that share your territory now represent a new generation, born into the changed world you've helped create. They're different from the animals you knew in your youth, more adaptable, more tolerant of human presence, more skilled at surviving in compressed habitats. They're the future of your species, and they carry forward the lessons you've helped establish. Your body has found a new equilibrium, stable but fragile. You've learned to live within its limitations, to extract maximum value from minimal resources. You're like a perfectly tuned instrument, capable of producing beautiful music despite showing the wear of long use. Every day you continue to function is a testament to the power of adaptation and the persistence of life. The forest has become your collaborator in this final phase of existence. It provides what you need when you need it, almost as if it recognizes your contribution to its own survival. You've become so integrated into the ecosystem that your presence is essential to its proper functioning. You're not just living in the forest anymore, you're part of it in the most fundamental sense. Your daily routines have become meditation, repetitive actions that connect you to the deeper rhythms of forest life. You move through your territory with the precision of long practice, touching base with each important resource, maintaining the connections that keep your small world functioning. These activities serve practical purposes, but they also provide meaning, structure, purpose. You begin to understand that your story is approaching its natural conclusion. Not because you're sick or injured, but because you've completed the arc of a Pudu's life in the most comprehensive way possible. You've experienced everything your species can experience, adapted to every challenge your environment can present, contributed to the future in every way available to you. The forest that has been your home for 20 years continues to evolve around you, but you're no longer trying to keep up with every change. You've found your place in the new order, carved out a niche that suits your current abilities and needs. You're living proof that adaptation is possible, that life finds ways to persist, even in the face of overwhelming challenges. Your legacy is already established, written in the genes of your descendants, the trails you've worn through the landscape, the knowledge you've demonstrated about how to survive in a fragmented world. Whether you live another year or another day, you've already succeeded in the most important ways possible. You've lived a complete life full of struggle and triumph, adaptation and persistence. The forest remembers you, not as an individual, but as part of the continuous flow of life that has defined this place for millennia. You've been a participant in something larger than yourself, a contributor to the ongoing story of how life adapts to changing conditions. Your presence has mattered, your contributions have been noted, your legacy will persist. As you settle into your favorite resting spot, surrounded by the familiar sounds and smells of the forest that has been your home for 2 decades, you understand that you've achieved something remarkable. You've not just survived, you've thrived. You've not just adapted, you've helped create new patterns of survival that will benefit future generations. You've lived a life that matters, in a place that matters, as part of a story that's larger than any individual animal. The forest continues its ancient rhythms around you, seasons cycling, life and death intertwining, the future being created moment by moment through the accumulated actions of countless individuals. You've been part of that process, a contributor to the ongoing creation of tomorrow. Whatever comes next, you've played your part well, lived your story completely, added your thread to the vast tapestry of forest life. Your body finally gives you the signal you've been unconsciously waiting for. It's not dramatic, no sudden collapse or overwhelming pain. Instead, it's a quiet settling, like a machine that has run smoothly for decades, finally beginning to wind down. Your joints ache more in the mornings, and the ache doesn't fade as quickly as it used to. Your appetite becomes sporadic, not from illness, but from a natural decrease in your body's demands. You find yourself sleeping longer, deeper, in ways that would have been dangerous in your younger years. But the forest has accepted you now, granted you a kind of immunity that comes with age and proven survival. Predators pass by your resting spots without showing interest. You're no longer seen as prey, but as part of the landscape itself. The changing seasons feel different now. Spring arrives, but your body doesn't respond with the usual surge of energy and renewed appetite. Summer brings warmth that feels good on your aging joints, but you don't use it to expand your territory or increase your activity. Autumn comes with its familiar preparation rituals, but you find yourself going through the motions rather than feeling the urgent drive to gather resources. Your territory shrinks naturally as you stop patrolling the outer boundaries. Other animals move in to claim areas you once defended fiercely, but you don't fight them. There's no anger in this withdrawal, no sense of defeat. You're simply focusing your remaining energy on what matters most, the core areas that provide everything you need to maintain basic survival. The forest has become your partner in this final phase. It seems to offer what you need exactly when you need it. A patch of tender shoots appears near your favorite resting spot, just as your appetite returns briefly. A sheltered area provides perfect protection during an unexpected storm. Water sources remain accessible even as your range contracts. You start spending more time simply being present, watching the forest's daily dramas unfold around you. Young animals chase each other through the undergrowth, their play preparing them for the serious business of survival. Birds build nests and raise families in the trees above your head. Insects go about their endless cycles of feeding and reproduction. You're witnessing the continuation of life, the persistence of the patterns that have defined this place for thousands of years. Your memory becomes more selective, holding on to the important lessons while letting go of unnecessary details. You remember every successful adaptation, every strategy that kept you alive, every moment when quick thinking or careful observation saved your life. But you forget minor conflicts, routine days, the countless small struggles that filled your younger years. The other animals in your territory treat you with a kind of reverence now. Young pudas approach more boldly, as if trying to absorb some of your accumulated wisdom through proximity. They follow your trails, feed in areas you've established, adopt behaviors you've pioneered. Your lifetime of adaptations has created a template for survival that others can follow. You begin to notice that your breathing has changed. It's not labored or difficult, but it's different, slower, more deliberate, as if your body is conserving energy for essential functions. Your heart rate becomes more variable, sometimes racing for no apparent reason, other times slowing to a barely perceptible rhythm. The forest around you shows signs of your long presence. Trees bear the marks of your antlers from years of territorial marking. Trails are worn smooth by 2 decades of your footsteps. Feeding areas show the careful browsing patterns you've developed over the years. You've shaped this place as much as it has shaped you. Your final winter arrives with unusual mildness, as if the forest is offering you one last gift. The temperatures stay moderate, food remains accessible, and you're able to maintain your routines without the extreme energy conservation that characterized previous cold seasons. You move through these months with a sense of completion, as if you're tying up loose ends. Spring returns, but this time you don't emerge from winter restored. Instead, you feel a profound tiredness that rest doesn't cure. Your body has reached its limit, not from any specific injury or illness, but from the accumulated wear of 20 years in a demanding environment. You've used up your reserves, spent your strength, given everything you had to give. You find yourself drawn to the places that have held the most meaning in your life. The stream where you learned to drink as a young animal, though it's now channeled through concrete structures. The area where you first successfully defended territory, though the original landmarks have long since been altered by human development. The corridor that connected your world to others is still functioning, but changed by years of use. These pilgrimages don't feel mournful or desperate. They feel like acknowledgments, ways of saying goodbye to the places that have defined your existence. You're not seeking anything specific, just completing a circuit that feels necessary, touching base with your own history one final time. Your final day begins like any other. You wake in your favorite resting spot, a small depression beneath a fallen log that has provided shelter for the past several years. The morning light filters through the canopy in patterns you've seen thousands of times before. Birds call from the trees above, insects buzz in the undergrowth. The forest hums with its familiar energy. You try to stand, but your legs won't support you. This isn't weakness from hunger or injury. It's simply the end of your body's ability to function. You settle back into the depression, surrounded by the scents and sounds that have defined your entire existence. The forest embraces you, as it has for 20 years, offering comfort and acceptance. Your breathing becomes shallower, more spaced out. Your vision blurs slightly, but you can still see the play of light through the leaves above. Your hearing remains sharp, picking up the subtle sounds of forest life continuing around you. A young poodoo moves through the undergrowth nearby, following one of your trails, carrying forward the patterns you've established. You close your eyes, not in defeat, but in completion. You've lived a full life, experienced everything a poodoo can experience, contributed to the continuation of your species in the most comprehensive way possible. The forest that has been your home, your challenge, your partner for 2 decades, continues its ancient rhythms around you. Your heart slows, then stops. Your breathing ceases. The forest doesn't pause to acknowledge your passing. It simply continues, as it always has, as it always will. But you've become part of it now, in the most fundamental sense. Your atoms will return to the soil, your nutrients will feed the plants, your legacy will persist in the genes of your descendants, and the knowledge you've demonstrated about survival. Within days, your body begins to decompose, returning to the forest that created and sustained you. Small scavengers take what they can use. Bacteria and fungi break down the rest, and the cycle continues. The depression where you died becomes slightly richer soil, supporting new growth that will feed future generations of forest animals. The trails you wore through the landscape persist, used by other animals who never knew you but benefit from your decades of careful route selection. The feeding areas you developed continue to provide resources for the forest community. The territorial boundaries you established become part of the complex map of relationships that defines this ecosystem. Your descendants carry your genes forward, but more than that, they carry the knowledge you helped establish about how to survive in a fragmented world. They face new challenges with the same stubborn determination that kept you alive for 20 years, adapting to conditions you never imagined, but using principles you helped prove. The forest that tested you so harshly also made you strong, gave you the skills you needed to survive, the instincts that kept you alive, the adaptability that allowed you to thrive in changing conditions. You were a product of this place, shaped by its challenges, strengthened by its demands, and ultimately absorbed back into its endless cycles. Your story becomes part of the forest's larger narrative, a single thread in a tapestry that has been weaving itself for millennia. You lived well, survived against tremendous odds, contributed to something larger than yourself. You proved that life finds a way, that adaptation is possible, that the future belongs to those who refuse to give up. The forest moves on, carrying your story forward in the genes of your offspring, the patterns you established, the knowledge you demonstrated. You've become part of the institutional memory of this place, a contributor to the ongoing story of how life persists in the face of overwhelming challenges. Your 20 years were a testament to the power of adaptation, the importance of persistence, the value of refusing to surrender even when the odds seem impossible. You showed that survival is possible even in the harshest conditions, that change can be met with creativity and determination, that life always finds a way to continue. The forest that raised you is smaller now than it was when you were born, but it's still home to Pudas, still capable of supporting the complex web of relationships that define a healthy ecosystem. Your contribution to that system was significant. Your presence mattered. Your legacy will persist long after the last trace of your physical form has returned to the soil. Life as a poodoo might be rough, but there's another animal out there that has it way worse. Trust me, it's wild. Check out the video and see for yourself. Until then, see you soon.